So thank you guys for joining the Go Queen Brand podcast with Key Chat. So today I'm really excited. I have a NOLA native. You guys know I'm 504 for life. So I have Miss Mignon Francois. And you guys know New Orleans is a French city, so y'all better, recognize. So I have Miss Mignon Francois. She's an amazing woman. She is the founder of the Cupcake collection. And if you guys look her up, you're going to see all over, it's going to say the famous tagline that she took $5 and started a $10 million business. So you guys know I'm really big on entrepreneurship. So I have a lot to talk about with her. So I want to give Miss Mignon the floor so she can introduce herself. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me. I'm a 504 girl too. I always like to say that you can take the girl out of New Orleans, but you'll never take the New Orleans out of the girl. So doesn't matter where I am. I believe that New Orleans is the best place to be from. Yes. And so I'm a really proud New Orleans girl.
That's amazing. New Orleans has bred a lot of entrepreneurs and a lot of people that will never be forgotten for sure. So I always love talking to my New Orleans natives. So I want to get started with your journey. Like I said, like I was telling you pre-recording, that obviously with my research, I was looking up your information and I was like, wow, like I really needed this myself, just hearing so many things that you said. I'm like, oh my God, where should I start? So I know like one of the main things that I picked up on when you started your business, you were saying how you were in like a crossroads in life, and you literally took your last $5 to start this business. You had 6 children. Can you tell the listeners just how to just put us in that moment when you, were like, hey, I need to figure out something and I need to figure it out now. Just put us in that frame as to how you got started.
I grew up in New Orleans on talk radio. My mother believed in listening to NPR. So I grew up in New Orleans East. So a lot of times we would commute with my mother into downtown on Canal Street where she worked. And then we would catch the bus to school from there. So I grew up listening to Paul Harvey and the rest of the story. So when I got older, when I would move to different towns, I would look for that Paul Harvey experience where I could hear stories of triumph and that sort of thing. And so I had just moved to Nashville and I was looking for a good talk radio show to listen to. We didn't really listen to the radio in my car because I book on tape and that kind of thing is what I sort of raised my children when they would ride with me. And I had found this radio station, this program, the people were screaming, "We're debt free." I mean, it was a thing. They were getting ready. The host was like, "Are you ready to scream it?" I mean, I'm like, what are they doing? I'm really excited. Woo, what are they going to scream about? And I wanted that. I wanted that feeling that they had. Yes. I needed to know what I was listening to. I had moved to Nashville from Atlanta, where I had listened to another financial guru there named Clark Howard. And you could find all the travel deals and find out how to be able to travel affordably around the country, around the world. So I was looking for Clark Howard and I couldn't find him in Nashville, but I found this guy. And so I wanted to find his show. At first, I didn't know what the name of it was. The internet wasn't then what it is now. So you couldn't just Google, "We're debt free," to find it. But I happened on it again and I started listening to it. This guy was giving biblical principle, financial direction based on biblical principles. And I was raised in a very religious household. So that was right up my alley to know what God had to say about me being in debt. These were the things that my parents had taught and I had gotten away from. And so I was hungry for it. He had this baby step plan that said, put your money in envelopes and you want to pay for your basic necessities first. And then you're going to put put the minimums to everything you owe. And then anything extra, you're going to chunk it away at your lowest, smallest bill. And you're going to do that until you eliminate that. And then everything that you have from that one left over goes to the next one until you're debt free. He teaches you how to get an emergency fund and all that kind of stuff. So I'm following the plan. I'm in the back of my house. I'm sitting there in the dark because we have no electricity. And we're running our house on a generator. So I sit there in the dark in the daytime so that when the children come home, they could have normalcy. They could feel like we had electricity, even though we really didn't.
Right.
And even at that time in our lives, water wasn't sure. Running water coming out of the faucet wasn't sure. So a lot of days I would walk to the Kroger and buy gallons of water to fill up the bathtub for my kids. And so that was my life. I'm sitting in the back of the house doing the Dave Ramsey baby step plan, putting the money in the envelopes. When I realized I've put this money in the envelopes, nothing has really been taken care of yet. I'll have $5 left and I haven't fed my family. Now our money, I'm a stay-at-home mom, and our money isn't even regular.
Right.
So it's like, I don't know when the next money is coming, and all I have is $5. I'm like, okay, red beans and rice. I'm from New Orleans. That's what we're gonna eat. We're gonna do red beans and rice. I have like a vat of rice in my house. You know, at this time, like a huge container that a little small baby could get in the inside of, and rice is $1 a pound.
Right.
I mean, beans are $1 a pound. That's what we're gonna do. Maybe sprinkle some ramen noodles in there. Let me tell you, to this day, my children can hook up some ramen noodles, honey, because they have learned how to do some gourmet stuff with that. You know, little becomes much. And so I decided that that's what I was going to be able to do. And when my neighbor knocked on the door and asked me if the cupcakes I had been making, because this same financial guru said you could get out of debt by having a bake sale. And I thought, well, I'll just have a bake sale every single day. One problem, I don't know how to bake.
I did read that.
Even out of a box.
Right.
I have these little girls who are awesome bakers, and I think I will have them bake it at night after school, and I will sell it during the day. We had started becoming known in the neighborhood for these cupcakes I was making, because shortly after we got started, my oldest daughter let me know, oh, I have a plan. It really doesn't include you. I'm going back to New Orleans after graduation. I'm getting up out of this Nashville, scene.
Right.
And without her, my little daughter wasn't interested anymore. So I got to learn how to bake. So I called my grandmother on the phone. And I asked my grandmother for help, who is from Gibson, Louisiana. So that's outside of Houma. And so my grandmother lived on the bayou. So she didn't have recipes written. She's like, I don't have recipes. Open up your hand, squeeze that much, flour together, like that. I started realizing in that moment, as I wrote down everything that she said, that everything that I couldn't apply when I was in college 17 years earlier at Xavier to become a doctor, I couldn't apply the science to the human body, but all of a sudden, everything that I couldn't get right all opened up and became alive for me as I'm looking at these ingredients on a piece of paper.
Wow.
And I started realizing that I could make ingredients do what I wanted them to do. And from there, I made my first successful cake. I started making recipes of my own. And I would go into the neighborhoods with that. When someone new moved to my neighborhood, I would knock on their door and welcome them with little bush themed cupcakes that I would write welcome to the hood, because this was an area of town that reminded me of New Orleans in that the streets, it looked like uptown.
Yeah.
Sidewalks were brick. The people could live and work in their house. You have a restaurant on the corner inside of a big mansion, and then like a little small shack next door to that. Like that's what
typical uptown.
Yeah, this little neighborhood I was living in looked like. And so as they would tear down one house and put up 15, I would go meet the real estate agents outside and say, listen, I'm trying to like start this bakery business. My family says it's good. I mean, I think they just love me. Will you taste it?
Mm-hmm.
And those people would try it. And they would come back and knock on my door and ask me for more. They started ordering what I was doing. So I started being known in the neighborhood for welcoming people with this really great product that they loved. So fast forward to where I was in the story, sitting in the back of the house with no lights, when my neighbor knocks on the door to ask me to place an order for all of her clients for this particular season. The holidays were coming up, and she wanted to give all of her clients my cupcakes. And
Wow.
she said, now that's going to be a lot of cupcakes. It was going to be 600 cupcakes, as a matter of fact. And she was like, listen, you can't bake it all at once. And so whenever you make it, she said, even if you could, I couldn't pass them all out at once. So when you make some, I'll pay you. Mind you, I just finished doing my little baby step plan. All I had was $5. And the $5 I had, I needed to go to the store with for red beans.
Right.
And so I accepted her deal and I shut the door. I immediately went inside and started having a come to Jesus moment. So I'm like talking to the Lord, like, really, God, you give me this opportunity to have an order. I've been asking you for an order. You let this opportunity knock on my door when I have no money to go to the store and buy anything. I heard God say to me, I feed birds and they don't work. They don't store in barns. There's a Bible verse, they don't toil and they don't store in barns. The lilies of the field that are here today and gone tomorrow, even Solomon, who was the richest man that ever lived, isn't clothed like they are. How much more am I going to take care of you who looks like me? Bet. I put on my shoes and I walked to the grocery store that was a couple of blocks away because my cars have been repossessed.
Wow.
And I went and bought all that I could buy with that $5, and I turned it into 60 that day. Because like she said she would, she paid me. I turned that 60 into 600 by the end of the week. And I've been flipping that same money. We'll turn 12 years old on November the 9th. I've done this with no experience. I've done it with no credit. I've done it with no money. I did it with that seed.
Wow.
And all of the recipes are mine. We are a debt-free business. The only debt we own is the building that we exist in, which, mind you, was up for foreclosure sale on the day that I opened the business.
Wow.
I knew that I was going to lose my home also in December. But I believed God and I challenged him. And I said, if you are who you say you are, you better start doing what you say you can do for me. Because I'm tired of, don't you get tired of sin? It happens for everybody else. And somebody listening here is tired of hearing it happen for everybody else. Like, God, what about me? It's my turn to have a God moment. It's my turn for you to make it happen for me. And if you will make me successful, I promise I will tell anybody who will listen about what they can do if they believe. And so that's why I'm sitting here with you today.
So the common thread in everything that you just said was God. So I'm going to go off track actually with my next question. Obviously faith is a big thing for you, just in the research that I've done about you, and just in the spirit in what you just said, is leading me to even ask something different. So like you just spoke out to people that are listening, that's in that same crossroads, which is so common right now, especially with what's taking place right now in the world. So just from what you just said, like you literally started from nothing and you built and you built and you built, but that common thread was you believed in God. So how do you incorporate faith just in every single day? Like you said, you was just driving and heard the financial show that used the Bible scriptures. How, and I know you're obviously a living example of faith and works. So how do you just incorporate that in every day? Because I know obviously just from your journey, like you said, you started from nothing. You had 6 children. You obviously went through some time periods, but obviously you kept that faith. How do you keep the faith? And, and I think it's just so important for people now to just know that with what's going on. There's so many people, trying to hold on to that dream, that entrepreneurship, especially now, women in business is just multiplying, because it's like, it's at the point where we got to figure out how to eat. Literally, we can't depend on
I think the great thing about the pandemic is it happened for us, not to us.
Right.
And that's one of the things that has been, also another common thread in my life. I believe that everything that's happening to me is actually happening for me. And the only way that I know what God will do is I spend time with God to know what the promises are. It's just like I travel a lot. And when my children were little, and now my grandchildren know, when I come, Emmy is what they call me, Emmy, is gonna bring something. How do they know? Because they've experienced me before. They know that I will do what I say will do based on the promises that I've given them. So if Emmy says that she's going to do something, then they will challenge me to do what I said. Emmy, you said you're gonna bring me something. Why don't you have anything for me? I better produce for them because I told them that I would. But the only way they know that I will produce something for them is because they know what I said I would produce. And so you have to know what the promises of God are in order to call them back to him and say, you said that you would do this thing for me. And so for me, it is like this faith. Let me back up a little bit. This pandemic, when I said earlier, is happening for us. Have you not noticed that even the earth is responding? We have had a true fall season. Yes. Like usually we go straight from the summer to straight up winter. But we've had a fall season like we've never had. At least in my lifetime, I haven't seen where it's like, ooh, it's jacket weather. Like it's finally jacket weather. We go from, tank tops to coats, like it's sweater weather coming up through here. It's even the earth. Like, you can see some parts of India where you can see mountains that you couldn't see before. The air is responding because we got out of the middle of it and we had to go inside, right? I just, at the beginning of the pandemic, I sat down with the people who, a joyride with me, like I like to call it, on Instagram. And I encouraged them to not be afraid because what I want people to know is this: faith is currency and it will perform for you like money. And so what is money except that we believe in it? It's paper. So why does this paper work to obtain things for me that this plain white sheet of paper? Because I know that sheet of paper and I know what that green paper will do. So I put my faith in the ability of that green paper to perform for me. And it is in that makes that green paper work. But they've got people out here, I've seen them, especially during the pandemic, I'm gonna live with no money for the next 6 months. Have you ever seen anybody do those experiments like that? And they're like, I'm just gonna get everything. Because it's about according to your faith, be it unto you. So what you believe, essentially, you can have. Money is the same way. However much you have depends on what you can receive. How much faith you have depends on what you can receive. You get a return on your investment. Whatever you place into that faith, whatever you deposit your faith into will come back to you according to whatever your faith you have. That's what you will receive. However much money I put into the bank is how much money I can withdraw. And if I leave that money in the bank, I can get residual income off of it. I can get dividends off of it, right? So I believe that faith and money have the same properties and can be used in the same way. And so that's how my faith becomes stronger because I spend time in the promises of what God has said, I've seen him come through for me and do it.
Mm-hmm.
And my promise to him was, keep on doing this, God. I'm going to keep on telling everybody else. My
Right.
whole mission, vision statement for the Cupcake collection has nothing to do with cake.
Mm-hmm.
It has nothing to do with being the best baker on the planet. None of that. Our vision statement is we want to be a lighthouse in the community to show others what good business looks like, and to illuminate the path for entrepreneurs to know what they also can do if they believe.
Wow.
That's what we're here for. And if the way that we can provide joy to people is to give them cupcakes, because there's no physical way to receive that joy. I just had a really bad day and I need something that I can be in control of. We have a cupcake for that, and so then you become the carrier of that feeling or that experience. But our whole mission has nothing to do with cupcakes. Wow. It's something that we can communicate with or get to the conversation about. It allows me to be here with you and tell other queens, about straightening your crown, because it's for you to have. God's desire is that we would prosper.
And I think that's just something in general that people tend to miss. And I've said this a lot in past shows, that I feel sometimes people are afraid to understand that it's okay for us to not struggle. It's okay for us to want more. It's okay for us to want greater. We don't always have to drown in debt. We don't always have to be struggling financially. And there's nothing wrong with having that conversation and saying, I do want to make money. I do want to be financially secure. I do want to have something to give to my children. I just feel like, because a lot of us really weren't raised with that mindset. I don't want to speak broadly of everyone, but I'm just saying in general, a lot of people don't really have conversations, didn't grow up having that conversation about money, period. About, hey, this is how you get good credit. Here's how you save up. I'm 43 years old. These are things I'm just learning.
And all right, 43? Right. Honey. You look amazing.
Thank you. And I grew up in a 2-parent household, but I didn't have any knowledge of, you know how important it is to have, a good credit score, or do you know how important it is to save money? I didn't know that. I grew up in an environment where the men work, the women's supposed to stay at home, have the babies, take care of them. And life don't always work out like that. I'm a single mother, you know what I'm saying? So it was like, okay, my marriage didn't work. What I'm supposed to do now? They didn't tell me what to do if it don't work.
That was my story.
Right. It's a lot of women's stories. It's a lot of our stories, so it's like, what do you do now? So I just love when people just say, hey, it's okay to want greater. It's okay to even tell God, look, this is what I want. Sometimes I feel like in my spiritual journey, I feel like God is kind of tricky in a way. Sometimes we sit back and we expect him, he see I'm doing this, but I'm not getting that blessing. I see so-and-so getting it, but what about me? But on the flip side, we didn't talk to him either. Some of us haven't told him. It's and I think sometimes he sits back okay, I'm waiting for you to tell me. I know in my personal situation, I was working in an industry that I didn't like for 5 years. And I kept saying I'm going to leave. But I never made the steps to leave. And literally one day, I never forget, it was a Wednesday, the day after Mardi Gras, matter of fact, I was on my way to work and something told me today is the day to resign. You need to give them your 2 weeks today. And I kind of felt in my situation, God was waiting, when you make the step, I got you. It's not going to be easy, but I can't do anything until you make a move too. I think sometimes we want it to drop down in front of us.
Right, because without faith, it's impossible to please the Lord. And then God says to you, go do this. I'm waiting to give you, just like I'm waiting to give you everything you asked me for. Everything you said you want, I'm waiting to give it to you. You have to move. Just like you said in the beginning of our conversation, faith without works is dead. It's nothing. It's no faith if you don't work it.
Right.
You have to do something. We keep asking, I love to give this example. We keep asking God to tie our shoes and he says, no, I gave you hands for that.
Right.
Buy your own shoes. Ask me for more stuff. Ask me for greater. Ask me for what you cannot do by yourself. And we come up with these little bitty ideas that that doesn't take a God size to jump in and help us. And that's why God isn't stepping in, because like, I gave you some for that already. I gave you ears for that. Yep, you could listen. I gave you a mouth for that. Go talk about that. We keep asking God to do little bitty things, and he says, I am able to do exceedingly. That means much more than you can even think about in your mind.
Right.
And we want to limit him to, hey, can you tie my shoes for me? One of the things that changed me was rap lyrics. I heard this rap song between Jay-Z and Kanye, and it was Otis. And Kanye said, this isn't the pinnacle of my rough times. Kanye says, they ain't see me because I pulled up in my other Benz. Last week, I was in my other Benz. And I was like, hold on a second. He has options and they're luxurious, and I don't even have nothing. And you're like, do you love him more than me? Like, do you want more for them than me? Like, I see myself as the Beyonce of the baking industry. So go ahead and call me Mignon. I heard that. I just feel like if they can achieve it in their industry, I can achieve it in mine. But you know what I heard God say to me in that? Are you willing to put in what they put in to get what they get out? You never hear anybody who is successful saying it was easy. You hear about them staying in the studio, to wee hours of the morning for always being, you hear them being on the court, the basketball court when nobody else was there. You hear that Drew Brees is on the football field practicing and running plays in his mind when none of the rest of the saints are out there. You know what I mean? So it's just like, we have to know that work is required of us. If we want to we have to work like it depends on us. And I believe we have to pray like it depends on God.
Right. I love that. And that you're right. That's the thing. Sometimes we look at so-and-so and we're like, oh, well, why am I not getting what they have? But they're putting in 20 hours and you putting in 2. They're putting in 7 days a week and you only want to do 1 or 2.
Yeah,
so it goes
sometimes
hand in hand.
Not even on any kind of, you want to sleep till 10 o'clock.
Right.
People who are out here, have you ever heard Steve Harvey said that he schedules every hour of his 24 hours? That he is up at 3 o'clock in the morning?
Yep.
By the time you get up, I've been up for your full workday.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it's just like, how do we expect to have greater when we offer in mediocrity? We want to do mediocre stuff and get great and amazing things, and it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's what you put in. It's just like money. You put it in, you're going to get dividends. You put work in, you're going to reap dividends.
Right. You're right. You couldn't have said it any better. Now, I know with other research that I was looking through some of your videos, and you mentioned there was a time period where you kind of felt like you weren't enough, like you weren't pretty enough, like you just weren't enough, and just brokenness. So how did you overcome that? And what would you say to people? Because I talk about this all the time, I think as women in general, we Black women, we got so many on our backs, and we have to feel like, we do grow sometimes and go, I'm not good enough. I don't even look good enough. I don't speak well enough. I don't fit this mold, and that's the mindset that we always have to break out of. And I feel like a lot of times it's a daily thing sometimes for some of us to remember, like, hey, let me tap you on the shoulder and remind you that you are enough. So just with that part, because I always talk about self-love. I always tell people to go love yourself. I feel like loving yourself is the key to everything. If you love yourself, you believe in yourself too. And you also, even on a religious aspect, if you love yourself, you know that you are a child of God and you are worthy and you're unique too. But, I feel like it all goes hand in hand with getting that success. So how did you overcome that brokenness? Just to know, like, hey, like you said, I can be and I will be, and now I am the Beyonce of this industry. You know what I'm saying? Like, how did you get to that stage of saying, hey, I know I'm enough. I can do this?
It started with a photograph. I used to be a photographer. So one of my degrees is in photography. And let me pause and say, I know we'll talk about this probably later. I'm everything you're not supposed to be if you're going to be successful. You know, including being a teenage mom, dropping out of college, being on food stamps and welfare. I've been all of that. So there are no excuses, but it started with a photograph. And I was working as a photographer, and my best friend says, I want you to feel the way you make other people feel when they see themselves in a picture that you've taken. And I was like, girl, you can't do that. She's like, just listen, put the camera in my hand. Let me do it. I want to just play in your hair. I just want to fix you up. And this was before filters and Instagram. And the picture came back, and the girl in the picture was gorgeous. And I tried my best to say that she wasn't. I couldn't bring myself to say, now that chick right there is bad. And it was me. It was me. And there were no filters to cover me up and to make me look, you know what I mean? It just was naturally me. And what I started about that time, God revealed to me that people weren't looking me up and down because there was like, who she thinks she is. It was, ooh, look at how she wore that. I never would have thought about that. You know what I mean? I began to learn that people weren't looking me up and down because they wanted to be negative towards me. They wanted something I had. And that I began to start seeing people who look me up and down, say, hey girl, you looking good. I like those shoes you have on. You know what I mean? Just something to bring that positivity, you know, full circle. You don't know that walking down the street, you may be the ministry somebody needs to experience today. Just in being who you are, walking, you know, into a room and say, hey y'all, you know, like just coming in as authentically you as you can be. I went through the most turmoil, like the most tumultuous time of not thinking I was good enough. Like I've been married for 21 years and my husband left me. Didn't want me anymore. You know, I shaved my head. I think I tried to self-mutilate or something. Just because it's like I just wanted to be as ugly as I could, you know. And so I went through this like natural hair phase, and then these curls that started working themselves out of my head that I had never met before. Because I had a relaxer since I was 5 years old, you know, and I was like, wait a minute, I like, you know, I like this, you know, and then the more that it could be big, and the more that it was naturally itself, and the more I came in loud and happy and telling the truth to people about my situation and sharing my story because somebody else was going through it too, the more people applauded and cheered me on and said, yep, do more of that because I needed you to do that. That I began to be more and more and more myself. But here's what solidified it for me. My name means beautiful.
Wow.
And I thought I was ugly. And I think that everybody should do their due diligence to find out what their name means, because we are arrogant individuals to believe that we come up with any of this stuff ourselves, but that your creator dropped down to your parents what he thought about you and said, call her this. And that God told my parents to call me beautiful because that's what he thought about me. But yeah, I want to put on God what I think about myself and elevate what I think about myself ugly above what God thinks beautiful. And when I realized the meaning of my name, because you will live out the meaning of your name or the adversary set up against it.
Right.
I began to walk in rooms and own them when I knew that I'm supposed to be pretty. I'm supposed to have, I'm supposed to have the right thing on. And my clothes are supposed to fit well. I'm supposed to be like, I'm supposed to make you stop. Regardless of the fact that my lips are way too big and my nose is way too big and my forehead is a 5 head, right? That's what's beautiful. Yes. I got on a call the other day, and the guy, I'm talking to this famous person on this call, and first thing he says is, "Wow, look at your hair." You know what I mean? And I'm just like, those are the ways that God began to send affirmations to me. Once I received it, once I accepted it, and once I began to walk in what he said about me instead of what I think about myself, and that began to change my situation. That doesn't mean I don't have ugly days. Right. You know what I mean? I have them all the time, but then, I try to go repeat, like we are good for writing affirmations down that we heard somebody else say, and things like that. And I have learned to go back and write those affirmations about what God says.
Yeah, definitely. Now, something else that I saw just looking, I'm glad you mentioned affirmations. I know from one of your interviews that I watched, you mentioned the importance of journaling, how when you have an idea, you need to write it down. Because if you have an idea, like it can leave within seconds. What is the importance you would say just to advise other people? And I hear people say it a lot, like do your vision boards, write, like you said, write down those affirmations. But especially when you're trying to follow a dream, as I know you also mentioned, following your spirit. Yeah. When you're trying to follow that spirit, grab your purpose, what is the importance just to write it down? Because I think a lot of people, they underestimate how important it is to write it down, like just like the power of the tongue. So what's your take on just the importance of writing down that dream? Like, hey, this is where I want to see myself in 12, 18, 5 years, whatever. What's the importance for you just to write things down, a journal?
Well, do you have it notes by now? Everything for me is going to be religious or spiritual, right? So I'm going to go back to scriptural that says, write the vision, make it simple, make it plain, that others who see it may run with it and not pass out. So it's just like, you have to write it down in such a way that you can get people on board with what it is that you're doing. Because why? They need to deposit their faith currency into what it is that you're doing. And they channel that belief, that power of what you can do if you believe, towards your thing. Now, I also would shudder to say, be careful of who you share your things with. Oh, yeah. Because everybody's not happy for you. You don't want everybody praying for your situation. You don't need everybody talking about your stuff, because they'll talk the life right out of it, right? But I believe that you have to write it down. And scientifically, thoughts only last for 30 seconds before disappearing. If you don't eat them. And I just think it's like, how many times have you ever said, oh, when I get home, I'm gonna write that down, or oh, when I get home, this is what I'm gonna do, and you don't remember. And for the life of you, you can struggle to try to remember, and you can't. So I take a journal everywhere I go. This is my current one. You see all this paper and stuff sticking out of it right now. Every page of my journal is filled. I even write in the margins of them. I write ideas in them. Anything that, somebody's passed out to me or, given, I'll write all over it. Because, I constantly have a source to write down. Even if I don't have a pen, you got this. Right. You can write in your notes section, on your phone. Even in my books that I read, I will write. I tag them, and then I actually write in the margins on them. Wow. That, because you don't know what happens for when you actually write that thing. Right. I don't know why this is pressing me to say to you, even in this moment. I feel like the reason why it's so critical to write is because a pencil is sent to remind you. A pencil can be a pencil in all of its glory. But until a pencil goes through something, a pencil was made to make a mark.
Yes.
That's what a pencil is made for. But in all of its potential to make a mark, it will never make a mark until it's gone through something. It has to be sharpened. It has to go through the grind. It has to be shaved down. If you were a pencil, you would think that might hurt. For some of you to be whittled away. People have hurt you. People have dug at you. People have cut you. That was just carving out the piece of you that was gonna make a mark.
Yes.
And a pencil can sit there and be a pencil all day with all this potential on the inside of it, of the things that were going to be written with it. But until that pencil goes through something, that pencil is just gonna sit there being a pretty number 2 yellow pencil until it goes through something. And I think that's why it's important to write it down, because pencils are there to remind you. Pencils have erasers on them. Until they go through something, you can use the eraser, but that's not what the pencil was made for. The pencil wasn't made for the eraser. The eraser was sent to enhance the pencil. Right. But sometimes we're so caught up using the thing that was sent to help us for not what it was sent to do. And we're missing out on our opportunity to be what we were called to be, what we were created to produce. And a pencil was produced or created to make a mark, but it will never make a mark until it's been through something. That's why I want people to stop worrying about what you've been through. That's why I said, whatever's happening to you is happening for you. That's that grinding process. That's that sharpening process. If I hadn't been through the divorce, if I hadn't been devastated by the man that left, I wouldn't know what it really means to be loved.
Right. You can say that again.
Yeah, you know, because it's like, oh, you didn't love me anyway. You didn't want to see me do and become what God said I was. You were trying to hold me back the whole time.
Right.
Like if it hadn't been for the fact that I didn't have electricity and that God sent somebody, how would I know what he was willing to do for me? If I hadn't been through the things I'm going through. And that's why I wanted people to know, I've been where you are. You know, whatever that low thing is, I have been, I feel like everything. I was molested when I was a little girl. You know, I have, people have lied on me, taken my stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like everything has happened. And yet I needed to overcome those things so that I could glorify a God that wanted somebody else to know it ain't over because you're not dead. You know, it's like what they did to you was creating you. It was sharpening you so that you could make your mark. This is the mark on the world that I get to make. And so I think that's so important why you have to write it down. I think it's metaphorical.
And it's funny because I'm sitting here holding my ink pen the whole time we're talking. Like I'm always attached to my ink pen. If I'm not, like, if anybody listening, heck, I text myself a lot. Like if an idea comes and I'm like, oh, I don't have time to write it down. Like I literally send myself a text message because I will forget. And another thing that you said that's important, and you know, like we all go through stuff. And like I said, even at my age, I feel like I'm still in a process, you know, even in my early 40s. And once I hit 40, I went through just a lot of transformation. Like I just felt like I wasn't the same person, thank God, you know, that I was prior. Even this year alone, it just was interesting. And just like how you mentioned when I mentioned my age, when I tell people my age, they're always like, oh my God, you don't look 43. But here's the funny thing. If you look at a picture of me maybe 10, 15 years ago, when I was in a terrible, abusive, toxic relationship, you're not even going to recognize me. You're going to look at that picture like, that's that wait a minute, like something's not right. Like I don't look the same. Like even my children acknowledged that one time. It's like, your skin even looked different back then because I wasn't in my purpose. I was in a box. But on the flip side, I always say now, count it all joy. Like I count everything all joy, everything. Because it's like, if I didn't go through having someone literally tell me one day, look at you, you're nothing, you're nobody. If I had not went through those experiences, I would have never been sitting here talking to you. I would have never had this podcast where little old me talks to people, and gets an audience. I would have never got to where I'm at. So that's why I'm just so happy what you said, because it's important. And it's like a story that should never get old. It's so important to share your testimonies and tell people, hey, I've been there. I'm still in my process, like I hope I can talk to you in 10 years and be like, yeah, I made it too. I made my millions, but you know what I'm saying? Like we all go through something, but I just think it's important to let people know, like everything that we've gone through, it is worth it in the long run. It is, and it's easier said than done. It's not easy to understand why you're going through mess. I mean, come on, I don't think anybody's that mature while they're going through abuse or anything to say, well, okay, I guess I'm gonna have a good story to tell. No one thinks that while they're going through it. But the beauty of it.
So true. So true.
Right, no one thinks of that while they're going through it. You think, why
you're going through it, you just in it. You don't know that you are making a testimony. You don't know that you're going to be able to create something that the world is going to look at and say, that's good. I'm still in awe. I am still in awe of the accolades and the accomplishments that we have had as serious. Like when I go outside and I look at the line, I'm just like, God, seriously, like you just really did this.
Right.
And I'm just, that was so good. Like when you're in it, I like to say this, time flies whether you having fun or not.
You're right.
It's going on. So you might as well try to enjoy it. That's so good.
Because it's just something that, like, when you look back on stuff, it's to the point where I'm like, wow, I can't believe that is over. Because when you're going through something, you never see the end date. You never see the expiration date to turmoil, because it seems like it's never going to end. But like you said, time does fly. I know when I went through some bad stuff, a lot of times I look back like, wow, I can't believe that was like 5 or 6 or 10, or it's like, wow, like time does fly in a good way, and that's always a positive thing.
Yeah.
So barreling back, so of course, as we mentioned, like you're a mother, now you're a grandmother, but when you started everything as an entrepreneur, like you mentioned, your kids. So just for a lot of women, because like I said, this is the year I feel for sisters to start that business, to go for it and be those entrepreneurs. So of course, a lot of us are mothers. How did you find that balance? And what would you say to those mothers that have their kids? And a lot of us are single mothers, and we're like, oh my God, how
you ask the best questions. There is no such thing as balance. And that's what I want you to understand. You're going to miss some stuff. You're going to miss out on some things. You have to decide the reason, your why, that you're out here after this. I went back and I read a post when my son was turning like 21 or something, like, God, we really made it. I was 17 when I had him. And I'm like, God, I'm the perfect hot mess that needed to be in existence to make him what he is today.
Wow. Oof.
And doesn't matter what you don't have, you were selected for that job. Like that child, that purpose was placed in the inside of your womb. As women, we're creators. The most like God in that God chooses to use us to continue to bring forth humanity. And we have to know that that is a very big assignment. And there are other assignments too. And you are going to miss out on. I love Lisa Nichols says this. She says she's looking for harmony. And when I heard her say, I was like, yes, harmony. When I'm there, I'm going to be fully present there on the times that I can be there. I just spent some time with my granddaughter this week. She's 8 years old. And when Emmy comes, she is so happy. And she has another grandmother, Mimi, who she sees every day. And it's just like the world revolves around. But on the days when I come, our time is special. And Mimi is always her queen.
Yeah.
Right? But there comes those days that she allows me to step in and be Emmy. There's, you know, yes, would she like for me to be at more things at school? Sure, she would. But the one that I get to go to this year, she's gonna be ready to take pictures. She's gonna, you know what I mean? Like, we have to be okay with the assignment that we've been placed in. I missed a lot of games with my kids, but I'm grateful to be able to support them as parents now. I can be a supportive grandmother in a way. Like, I was able to pay for the first year of private school. You know, like I was able to do that because I might have missed out on your game, but that grind brought me here to be able to provide an opportunity that you wouldn't be able to do, because now you in your grind, I did mine, right? So you just surround yourself with a village. Somebody asked me, what does an entrepreneur need? Like, what are some of the tools that say you need a mama? Like, it doesn't have to be your biological one. It could just be one that kind of treats you like one. Somebody to be available to, you know, lick your wounds for you and help you with your babies and go and say, you got this, it's all right, I got them, you know? And I just, that's the thing I want people to know. There is no such thing as balance, but you can have harmony. That I am here when I'm here. You get all of me when I'm here.
Wow. So I have two more things I want to do before we round out. Okay. So just for, like I said, that entrepreneur that's listening, let's say, I'll take it out of that. Let's say there's a person who's listening and she's sitting on a dream, but she hasn't taken the steps. You know, she's like, oh, I don't know how I'm going to do this. This isn't going to work, you know, or maybe I'll do it a year or two from now, you know, just hesitating or just not truly believing in themselves. What would you say to that person, you know, just to inspire them to say, hey, the time is now, because time waits for nobody, quite frankly. What would you say to that person to get them out of that pessimistic and hesitation stage?
I think the statistic says that 93% of people are waiting for some major event to happen in order to start living. So I'm waiting until I finish paying off my bills to start living my dream. I'm waiting for my children to graduate from high school or college before I get that house. I want to share a testimony, and I hope it's okay with her. I was talking to my manager in New Orleans, and she wanted her baby child is turning 18. And she wanted to give her a car because her older daughter had one because their dad came through for that, but he didn't come through for this one. And she had been feeling slighted by that. You know, it's like, how you give to my sister, but you don't give to me. And she prayed and she said, God, I want to give my child a car. And she felt God say, put a bow on the one you have. Now, this is a 2017, so it's not very old, you know. Right. And she said, I got up and put a bow on it. I'm like, well, now what you about to do? She went down to the dealership and bought herself a brand new car on her terms. Now, when you talk to her the day before, she didn't know how she was going to do any of it. Right. But God says, you don't think like I do. You don't know what I have up my sleeve. All you have to do is ask and you shall receive.
Right.
But when you ask, you have to ask with right intention, and you have to believe when you come asking. If the truth is that I'm able to do way more than you can even think about, then whatever you've thought of still isn't big enough.
Right.
She said to me, she said, you know what, Mignon? For all the time that I drove that brand new car, because that was an accomplishment for her, that brand new car. So she just went to a whole new level when she stuck a ball on that thing and gave it to her daughter. And when it got herself something she actually wanted, because she said, I could take what they was willing to give me. She had a Toyota Corolla. And Toyota anything is not just any old thing, right? Those things last forever, right? And so she said, for all the days I drove it, I always knew it wasn't mine. She said, I was driving and said, this ain't mine. This is not what God has for me. So when she put that bow on it, she all of a sudden knew the purpose of it and what it was for. And so this is what I want people to know. You have to own your right now. There's a Bible verse, Hebrews 11:1, that says that now faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. I would hear that Bible verse and be like, what does that even mean? So I broke down every word. Now faith. Oh, okay, God, there are different levels of faith. There's different kinds, different flavors of it. So now faith is a thing. It's a kind of faith. That's a faith that acts even though you don't have a degree. Right. Even though I don't know how I'm going to buy my child a car, but I'm going to do it because you told me to put a bow on it. It's in the movement. Remember I said before, you got to do something. Yes. And so now faith moves when it doesn't look like you have what it takes. But it's that drive on the inside said, I'm not supposed to be here. I'm not supposed to be living in less. I'm supposed to have more. And it doesn't always add up to dollars. Because remember what I said, your faith is currency. It will perform for you. And so what I realized about the word now, it only says now based on your perspective. How you look at those letters determines what it really says. N-O-W is now, or is it? Or does it spell own? Because if you change your perspective on those same three letters, you get something totally different. And what I learned in my life in this journey to joy that I've had is that O-W-N, N-O-W, all I own is right now. I could walk away from this podcast with you and this entire house burned down. Then all I own is a pile of ashes. I can own all the things in the inside of it, but in the next few moments, an explosion can happen and all I own is a pile of ashes. So what I really only own is the moment that I'm in and what I choose to do with that. That's all O-W-N is N-O-W. And when you realize that all you O-W-N is N-O-W, you know what you get? W-O-N. Wow. You will have one when you figure out what you really own, and then you exercise that. Later, for trying to worry about creeping around and sweeping around somebody else's front door, you gotta own your own stuff. Yes. You have to be diligent and concerned with what you got going on. And that's happening right now. Time is flying. And if we don't grasp onto it, we're going to lose it. You can't get time back, but you can redeem it. Wow. Because you said, I'm 43, right? You said I'm 43. This business didn't happen until I was 33 years old. I think a lot of times people get caught up in how old they are. I'm too old for this. I'm way behind. This should have happened. I should have did this before.
Right.
The life that we know of Jesus, for those of you who are Christians or not, because you can be, whatever you believe, you can find this same truth, right?
Right.
The life that he lived that we know to be him is really the last couple of years of his life, which was in his 30s.
Yeah. True.
So when you get into your 30s, the awakening is just beginning. So just because you're older doesn't mean it's over. And I just want people to know that you can redeem the time that was lost by taking care of the time you have left. I might have been late to the game, but honey, I'm going to win for the rest of it. The first couple of quarters may not have been that great. But let me tell you, how many times do we see the Saints win? In one interception, one touchdown.
Right.
Or, you know what I mean? Like the game isn't over until you close your eyes and forever sleep. And I believe that doesn't happen until you've lived out your purpose or you ignored it.
Wow. That is so powerful.
So I'm grateful to be in position to be able to share with people how you can get back what was lost. It doesn't matter what they did to you. That had to happen because somebody's coming in your path that you're going to have to pick up off the ground. And you have to be able to say, girl, wipe your face. And so I'm grateful to be able to share this time with you, for you to be able to give me a platform to keep my promise to God, that I would be honest. That I would let you in to hear some of the things that could be shameful.
Right.
And let that be turned around. What the devil meant for evil, God made it good. And so many of your listeners, so many people who are experiencing this know that today is the day. Like my mom says, not now, right now.
Yes. Oh, wow. That is just so powerful. So powerful. So, like I was telling you, I like to round out every episode. Obviously, this is for the Queen community, and you have absolutely blessed this hour. But I want you, in your own words, for all the listeners, I want you to give us your definition of a queen.
Ooh. My definition of a queen is a woman who knows who she is and doesn't take anything from anybody else just to be herself. She doesn't have to destroy anybody to build herself up. She is because he was. That to me is what a queen is.
That gave me chills. I love that so much. Thank you so much for gracing this podcast. And before we end everything, tell people how they can contact you, all your contact information, your social media handles, everything.
Yes, you can find me at thecupcakecollection.com, on Instagram at mignon.francois or at the Cupcake Collection, and on Facebook at the Cupcake Collection, and on Twitter at Cupcake Tweets.
So thank you again. And you guys heard it. This is the Queen, Miss Mignon Francois. Like I said, your energy is just number one, amazing. I feel like I just breathed in like a lot of fresh air. Like I really felt like I just took in some positive energy, which is what we need every single day. So like I said, I'm so humbled by this entire conversation. I know it's going to bless someone. I already know it. It's just going to bless every single person that listens. And like I said, thank you so much. I just really appreciate it. I just love your spirit. And just thank you for just gracing everyone that's been in your path and using your testimony to inspire others. And like I said, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me and for letting me spend this time with you. You have truly brought me joy as well as we sit here. Girl, I need to go get myself together after this. I need to go put on just myself.
It's so funny.
Put on a dress or something.
Thank you. Like I said, I'm I just feel like you just sprinkled glitter on this whole episode. Like, I just really appreciate it. Like I said, we're all at different crossroads. And, sometimes with these podcasts, of course, I'm trying to inspire others. But, I take those nuggets too, when I'm recording. And I definitely took a ton of nuggets from this conversation. And I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Be safe.
Okay, have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.